Halito, halito, chuma chukma. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's good. So, I wanted to really briefly go through a couple of conversations regarding this Trail of Tears thing. A lot of people are very confused, as much as I am as well. But what I have learned is that the Choctaws and the Chickasaws of Oklahoma, of the 5 civilized tribes, they never went through any Office of Federal Acknowledgement. I have an interview with the head historian there, and he made it very clear that that office was only established in 1975. So I just have a few questions trying to gain some understanding with it, because it sounds like a crock of bullshit. Because if in 1820 they made these people leave from Texas, I don't know, New York, Virginia, where did they make these Indians leave from? So if they weren't on any reservations, then that means they were on land in places where, hey, beloved, halito, everybody, they would have some sort of documentation where they were prior to that. So if Andrew Jackson said, okay, you motherfuckers all gotta go, you gotta move, well, where did he take them from? So if this started in 1820 and it took them 19 years to forcefully remove everybody, meanwhile, they were maintaining this slavery relationship that they had, this caste system that they had, and all of this is taking place. They're making people walk, primarily just the Cherokees, because we don't know anybody that signed that treaty, do we? Where are the signatures at? Is that available for us to see? Probably not. But I was just messing around with Google, right? Gotta love Google. And I went to Google Maps. So when you look at the History Channel, National Geographic, and all these other places, they tell you that it took these people 2-3 months. Well, I took the liberty of actually going to Google Maps, right? And this shit is just mind-boggling to me. Sometimes I like to tell people, I was born at night, but not last night. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to take a look at that. So if they made Indians walk from New York to Oklahoma, that says 21 days. Okay? But there's no record of any Indians from New York being removed from their territory into what is now called Oklahoma and Arkansas. So where the fuck did they come from, right? And if they made these people move in 1820 or 1830, then that means they're going to be on the 1810 census, the 1800 census, and the 1790 census, right? So where the fuck did the people go? How come those people in Oklahoma and Arkansas and on the other side of the St. Stephen's line in Mississippi can't just fucking tell you where the fuck they were before they had to move? When I was a child, I grew up in South Jamaica. But as a young adult, I grew up on a different side of Queens. But I remember living in South Jamaica, though. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody picks you up and uproots you from your place, you're always going to be thinking about home. You're always going to be wanting to go back. So why the fuck was it okay for them to just accept that? I'm really fucking having a hard time with that. So then, and New York was just one of the places that I figured Indians could come from, right? They can certainly come from New York. And I'm just even more confused because I also did it, the directions from, closer proximity. Like, this is Georgia. Look how long it would take to walk from Georgia. So when they removed those Cherokees from Georgia, it was supposed to take them 13 days. So you mean to tell me 5,000 motherfuckers died in 13 days, but they was able to live to 89, 90, 100 years old during slavery? Do that shit make sense? I don't know how much sense that make. And if I'm tripping, y'all let me know. So that's just from Georgia to Oklahoma. It would have took them 13 fucking days. Then I did from Virginia to Oklahoma, and that would have took them 60 days. So how did they have all of these wars going on The Trail of Tears. So where did they get all these military men? Where did the militiamen come from to make these people march from here to there? Meanwhile, maintain slavery and watch all the immigrants coming in and all this other stuff that they was responsible for back then. How the fuck does that work? I don't even know how much sense that makes. So, like I said, these people should be documented. If they didn't have to move until 1820, they should be documented in 1790, 1800, 1810, and maybe, depending on what part of 1820 this so-called removal was, they should still be on the 1820 census too. So I find this shit really, really funny. I find it funny. So now, and then the Irish potato famine. Now, if the Irish were the first slaves that was over here, those are your African slaves, whether y'all want to believe it or not. Europeans are North African by law. And they had to be called free white people. So if you got to be called free white people after slavery, your ass wasn't free before, or maybe they wasn't white. But, we'll get to that. We'll save that for another etymology type date. But they couldn't have been free before. So I'm just like really fucking confused where these people came from. Then, of course, everybody's watched Gangs of New York. You've watched Gangs of New York, and you hear the butcher. Let me check what the butcher said. This is just incredible. And all this shit goes down right up under our noses, and all of a sudden these motherfuckers become a race of people, right? So, yeah, I find this shit just hilarious. Let's see. And this is all in like the first couple of seconds and shit. This is just hilarious to me. Let me see. Just the beginning of this is going to be funny because... Let me get this blown up. I don't feel like going upstairs to get my computer. I'm going to put it on the... Let me see. Let me put this shit on the Bluetooth. See. I'm trying to get this on the Bluetooth so y'all can hear this bullshit. And I'm also going to play this fucking audio from homeboy from the Office of Federal Acknowledgement at the BIA. These motherfuckers. Hilarious. But okay, here we go. Gotta watch this shit. I'm fast forwarded because it's just like a minute and some change in, and you gotta hear what this motherfucker shouts out because that's where they started. I don't really want to, I want to fast forward it, but I want you to get the point of what this movie is about. This is a really fucking deep movie. It is a politically, it's a political movie, and it clearly tells you how these fucking parties got established. Okay? So,
is this it, priest?
Look at
Pope's
this shit.
new army?
Can you guys hear that? I got my little
bitches and a
speaker
handful
hooked
of
up to it.
ragtags.
I know, Bill. You swore this was a battle between warriors, not a bunch of Miss Nancys. So
Not a
warriors
bunch
is
of
what
Miss
I brought.
Nancys.
The O'Connell Guard, the Cloggerglades.
Now you have the Irish. Think about Tammany Parish in New Orleans. Think about St. Tammany's, these establishments and the Tammany Hall lodges with the Masons. Listen to what he refers himself to.
Bene.
Here he goes.
On my challenge, by the ancient laws of combat, we have met at this chosen ground
They ain't got shit,
to
ancient.
settle for good and all. Who holds sway over the 5 points?
5 points, they meant the whole fucking
Us
nation.
natives, born rightwise
Natives.
of this fine land, or the foreign hordes defiling it.
Us natives who came here right way. These motherfuckers didn't come here no right way. They was sit here for prison, right? New England, prison colonies. Rhode Island, and and Providence plantations. That's what the birth certificates say when people are born in Rhode Island. It's a plantation. So they sent the earth's worst over here. In 1625, King James issued a proclamation basically getting rid of all the Irish. So, not to minimize anything that we've been through at all, but you need to identify who the people are, right? So part of their redress of grievances had to be somewhere included in this motherfucking Native American shit that they got going on. So you just saw gangs in New York. The fucking Irish was having a war against the other their other people, because Ireland, Britain, and Scotland is part of Britain, and it used to be such a fucking a negative connotation before that they had to put great in front of Britain. They had to put great in front of it because you had the brutish Moors there. And I don't know why they got kicked out of the whole fucking world, but they got kicked out of the whole fucking world, and that ain't really none of my business. I don't really care. I don't really care. But isn't that, really strange? So now you have these Native Americans, and I'm going to read what the law dictionary say about them. I don't care what they're called in a de facto kind of way, because this is a de jure government, but they are not going to know the difference because they have now subjected themselves and they have been hired by the Department of Defense to basically portray this role. And you can't be mad at anybody if you leave your crown on a table and somebody else walks by and grabs it. You can't be mad at that shit, because if it meant that much to you, you would have protected it, right? So now if you do know you lost something, if you can ever get it back again, what are you going to do? You're going to be a lot more careful, right? And you just going to make sure that you take care of your shit better this time. And that's kind of what this shot is at what we're doing. Completely important that we need a political party in order to get some of our needs, concerns, and desires met, right? Because we are entitled, just like everyone else is. Everybody's entitled to a nationality. So the issue that I have, particularly with anybody that has, I call them grandma killers, because if you think that I don't have a right to a nationality, then you are pretty much no different than an oppressor. And just because I love my heritage doesn't mean that I hate anybody else's. We just got to get that understood. But, again, people need to know who the Know Nothing Party is. So you have the British, the Scottish, the German Palatines, and all these other people. They came over here with their debauchery and and they came over here with the drinking and stuff like that. And, things got turned up. They were on their Christian nation building shit, and they're Protestant and stuff like that. And they didn't really want the Catholics here. Wasn't much they could do about it. A lot of people weren't successful trying to do much to the Jesuits. But I suppose that's a different damn story. But at the end of the day, I really just find this whole shit fascinating. So now you have a political party that was started off of the Whig Party. And then all of a sudden, did you realize that these were two Republican parties that actually switched to the Democratic Party? So in 1865, after the emancipation, this is going to be the beginning of the KKK. The KKK and the Native American Political Party, Democrats. Is it starting to fucking make sense now? Because these are the things that ended up happening. These are the things that ended up happening. So what I find people try to do is get you to confuse the timeline, like everybody just ended up for one big motherfucking slave. But the important thing is, when you can say where your people were from these specific dates and particular times, then you say, okay, this happened in 1866. Your people were in the same goddamn county. You don't think you'd know about it or have some sort of firsthand knowledge as to how that shit happened? Do you think so? Do you think so? I mean, I need to know how much sense this shit makes. I want them to show me a census record where they were here prior to this removal. So you had 1820 to 1839 allegedly, and that's a pretty long fucking time. You had a couple of wars in between there, and then they were getting ready to start the American-Mexican War. So when did they have all this time and all this money? Now keep in mind, we're just going to stick to the 1850s and 1860s. Whatever happened to the gold that Lincoln had that belonged to us? Because the American Indian used to be on the Southern Confederate money, right? At one point, we were on the money. Why in the fuck would they kidnap slaves and put them on the money? Show me anywhere else in the world where they put them on the money. And I'm going to let you in another little caveat, right? You know, sometimes I smoke the weed and I just have these deep-ass fucking thoughts, right? For some reason, I'm looking at our currency in the United States, and I kept looking at the pyramid and shit. So I get on the computer and I'm looking. I said, let me go see what the fuck Egypt got on there. How come Egypt ain't got one fucking pyramid on their money? Not any Eye of Ra, none of that shit. Why? I found that shit to be very fucking interesting. It doesn't make any sense, but why would we have it on our shit, but they don't have it on theirs? That's a whole nother ball game. But these Trail of Tears, where was these people at before that? How come there was no family members left behind at all? Like, when did these German people come over here with names like John Smith? When did French people come over here with those kinds of names, and Russians and people and Swedes and stuff like that? How did they end up being named like Beulah, Lucretia, shit like that, right? Those names, I don't think that makes much sense at all. They don't make no sense. So you took the Indians out of Indian country and sent them to Indian territory, but they can't say, oh, we used to live in this village here in Alabama. Oh, we got moved from here. So far, the only documentation is really some Cherokees out of Georgia. But, you can't count that because you still got a whole bunch of issues with the entire county of Carroll. So there's certain places that we absolutely know that these genocides have occurred. But how many people have investigated some of these vital statistic agencies or why they were even implemented? How many people have interviewed some of the midwives during the Walter Plecker administration that actually wrote books and wrote stories on how they had to lie and take away people's birthrights, all in fear of losing their job? Are there any of those people? Was there ever any stories of somebody that just felt so goddamn guilty that they end up killing themselves because Walter Plecker made them deny people's right to a nationality and change their shit? Made them Negro or black or whatever, right? You Native Americans, you motherfuckers gotta calm down. We don't have the same wants, needs, or desires, man. You guys chose and you got that federal check. There's nothing wrong with that. You might deserve some shit, but you ain't the motherfucking folks that check is for. You are not the fucking landlord. You're not the fucking landlord, and we know that. We can read now. And this is the updated version. And let me tell you what this updated version of inhabitants say. You got to be a fucking inhabitant here. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Let me pull this up. This shit is bugged out, y'all. Let me see. Let's get this shit in perspective. Hey, everybody. Who we got here? Chimachukma. Hi, Marvin. Hey, beloveds. Hi, everybody. What y'all doing? How's everybody doing? Y'all good? Let me see. Okay, let's see. Where the hell? Now this is funny, because check this shit out. And it's real clear, and this goes right inside, coincides completely with the 1870 Naturalization Act, where they had to make these motherfuckers completely get rid of, their German citizenship, their whatever allegiance to anybody else, in order to claim that they are the natives, inhabitant. One who has his domicile in a place is an inhabitant of that place. One who has an actual fixed residence in a place. 2. A mere intention to remove to a place will not make a man an inhabitant of such place, although as a sign of such intention he may have sent his wife and children to reside there. Nor will his intention quit his residence unless consummated. So basically, when you leave, like let's say New York, when you go to California, in order to become a California resident, you have to do what? You have to make some sort of contract with California State. Usually that begins with the transfer of your driver's license. So now you go from one place to another to create a whole new contract. So if your license is suspended in New Jersey, when you come to New York, New York's not going to lock you up for that. And if they do, you need to sue their fucking boots. Don't even trip, especially if you're clean and they just, want to, just be assholes. You pay that $250 bail or that $100 bail, and when you get out, you put a fucking lien against their asses and you spank their boots. You get everybody. You knock them down like fucking bowling pins. That's how you do it. You just throw a fucking bowling ball and knock a few pins down. You may not hit all 10, but you're going to knock 4 or 5 of them fucking oppressors out, because the cop that stopped you, and God forbid, he's white, right? The cop that stops you, he's foreign, right? 9 times out of 10, he's going to be one of those 2 things, right? That's going to be a problem. Then let me see. The person that books you and steals your fucking fingerprints, the one that takes your picture, that's fucking conspiracy against rights. You have to make the presumption immediately, because when they pulling your ass over in the first place, they automatically think you're what? They think you're black. And it tells you that they have the right to assume. So if you don't rebut the presumption and establish yourself as a man or a woman, and establish yourself as the rightful landlord of this place, you're going to get treated like a tenant and you might get evicted. So now I can get to the juicy part of this. I'll be stopping and starting and shit like that, but I'm going to get to the juicy part. Nor will his intention to quit his residence unless consummated deprive him of his right as an inhabitant. The inhabitants of the United States may be classed into 1. Look who's number 1. Those born within the country. And 2, those born out of it. First, the natives consist first of white persons, and these are all citizens of the United States unless they have lost their right. Second, of the Aborigines, and these are not in general citizens of the United States, nor do they possess any political power. Black people got political power. That shit don't work for the Indians, but it sure works for these other motherfuckers, don't it? Gets their needs done, right? You better believe the Igbos got a motherfucking Congress out there set up in Queens. They got their African Congress set up out there in Queens. American Indian ain't got shit. And natives, let me read that again, consist first of white persons. There's your free white people. And they had to make it this way after the emancipation. You see how all this shit starts to line up, right? So, and second of the Aborigines. So that means the fucking natives ain't the goddamn Aborigines. Can you see that shit? Let me try and get one where, let me take and highlight the shit so y'all can see what I'm talking about and just make it easy for you. These people are just fucking incredible. This shit is hidden right here in plain sight. In plain fucking sight. And, a lot of people want to watch TV and shit. Let me see. It's not even anything we should be mad at. We should be mad if we're not looking at the shit, because if we ain't looking at it, they're going to get one over. They got the little boy in the H&M shirt with the little, I don't know, whatever, something monkey in the jungle, a little cute little boy and shit. But you want to know what's so crazy? Let me tell you how fucked up our people are. Now, everybody's mad that so-called little black boy had on a shirt that's addressing being a, I don't know, whatever monkey in the jungle. But if the white boy had that on, that's a little bit more accurate. Would that be racism or prejudice? Huh? If the white boy had on the shirt that said monkey, it's kind of closer to the truth. But it would be offensive, wouldn't it? I don't know. The coolest monkey in the jungle, that was it. Yeah, that was, I mean, the little boy was okay. And the weekend, I don't even want to touch on these fucking clowns, but let me tell you how stupid people are. This is how you know they don't handle business, right? Because he drops the fucking H&M, right, for whatever reasons, because he didn't like the shirt on the little boy. But he talks about drugs. He talks about doing drugs and just the fucking life of debauchery quite often. They had his song on Kids Bop. How many women bought their children that MTV Kids Bop CD where he's talking about, I can't feel my face when I'm with you? I mean, they took the curse words out, but your kids are talking about doing cocaine. I don't know. I don't know how smart he was for that, but whatever. Fuck him and feed him Franks. I don't give a fuck about him. Yeah, it's not even that serious. But, this type of shit these people be doing. And meanwhile, you got these motherfuckers walking away with the cornbread. And we worried about H&M and fucking coolest monkey in the jungle shit. And that shit ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Because this was a jungle before. It might not have been a motherfucking bad thing. Now, I don't know if we had any monkeys over this motherfucker. But this used to be a fucking jungle. There's some pictures that NASA had the deforestation of America. And from 1972 to like 2002, this whole shit looked like a desert compared to what it used to look like. And that's not, a really, really long time to be, to go from a head full of hair to alopecia. You know what I'm saying? That's what the fuck the greenery around America's done. Excuse me. Anybody got any questions? I got my glasses on. I'm still squinting, right? It's because the shit got a reflection and all of that. What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? How's everybody day today? How y'all fight oppression today? Did y'all fuck something up today in a nice, smooth, cool, and Aborigine way? Did y'all, get y'all shit off, y'all? Stop letting these people get at you. Just be calm and casual and shit. You know what I'm saying? I hope y'all had a wonderful day, man. I hope it was filled with power and peace and love, yo. This shit gonna turn around. This shit gonna turn around. And it's gonna be good. And we're gonna enjoy this shit. We're gonna enjoy it. Quality of life is very important to us, it's very important that we stay in the best frame of mind. It's gonna be hard to do, but you have to you gotta make sure, even if you lie to yourself, people do it to themselves all the time, but lie to yourself and tell yourself you feel good and get on out the bed. You know what I'm saying? And tell yourself it's gonna be okay, even if you can't see it right away. Just, make sure it's gonna be all right. I was reading the definition from the legal definition for inhabitants, and this is the updated Black's version. I'm using the app right now. I got sick of leaving my books all over the place. Some shits cost too much money, and I've been doing a lot of traveling, especially since I've been on the East Coast, and I leave stuff at grandma's house, stuff at my mama's house, stuff in my... Nah, I can't be doing that. So whatever I could do on my phone right now, that's what I've been doing, and, when I can't get to the computer. But I was reading the law definition for inhabitants, and I specifically chose the word inhabitants because that's what's in the Constitution. And I'm gonna tell y'all something. In New York, you gotta pay attention, and I think it's Article 1, Bill of Rights, Section 5A, where it tells you who the inhabitants are, right? So if there's only two within the inhabitants, it tells you the people that are non-aliens. There's only two types of motherfucking people here then, and that means it's the Indian and the alien. So why so many niggas on this penal colony in New York? I'm so glad they closing Rikers Island down. You don't know that motherfucker John Riker, Richard Riker, the person that shit is named after, part of the American Colonization Society. That motherfucker was sending them Indians over to Africa. And now they locking the Indians up in Rikers fucking Island. 100, 200 years later, this is the same folks, the same families. They're doing the same shit, and it's nothing but the same shit warmed over. And if we don't do something about it soon, see, but what they don't know is we are the descendants of the same fucking families that they was really trying this shit with. Right? Isn't that funny? We end up being the seeds of those people. And we're going to be the ones to make sure the shit gets turned up. So now listen to the hierarchy of what they're saying, right? And this is no offense, because by the end of, or the beginning of the 20th century, they done Negroed my people too. So we went from mulatto, colored. There was only free white people in some places, free whites or slave, those options. Then it was free white, black, or slave. And then you had like 2 other options. Throughout the years, it ended up changing. But listen to the hierarchy of the most recent one. And it says that first, white persons, and these are all citizens of the United States unless they have lost that right by felony. You lose your right if you get a felony, right? So second, of the Aborigines. So if the Native Americans, the natives, consist of white people, and they're not the Aborigines. And these are not in general citizens of the United States, nor do they possess any political power. Of Negroes, third of Negroes or descendants of the African race. So Negroes is different than African descendants, than Africans. Negroes are from the Caribbean. They may have some admixture, but I'm not so sure. I want to post a link a little later too. I found, and I went straight to Rio de Janeiro, to their education page, and I'm going to tell you, they don't talk half the shit. They talk about how the caste system started in the 1500s, and they don't mention a whole bunch of all this other traffic and stuff like that. And they specifically talk about the colonization and the slavery on the Indians. And they're calling themselves that on the Rio de Janeiro educational page, and I'll provide the link. So I just found that really strange, because from what we know, even from the most comprehensive database, is that this is where most of the transatlantic slave trade took place. But we know between the Caribbean, they would send the Rhode Island, Providence plantation Indians to Jamaica. They would send them to Bermuda and vice versa now, and then they would send the West Indians over here because they were free already, and they would come to work. Now, as they're coming here to work, when they enter into the continental U.S., they enter in as Negroes. That was because they were first captured by Spain. So that's going to be anybody from the Caribbean that they first saw. And they still called them Indians first, actually. But when the Portuguese came and started to profit off of the slavery system of slavery, this is the part where they called them Negro de Terra. They called the Africans Negro de Guinea, and they called the Tupis that lived on the coastal line of South America, and they called them Negro de Terra. Negroes, blacks of this land. So we know that those people were deeply melanated, right? So if they're saying that they started out as Indians and they're not talking about all this other admixture, then maybe we need to start going to different nations within the Americas to start looking at their archives more thoroughly, to start going through their pictures, to start getting out another page and have a Google translator perhaps, and start going through their crates, because they may be saying something different. Now here, there's a lot of things that they can't hide from us, because we have been able to go back into the crates and dig into these records and dig into these archives. There's nothing they can do to erase the Racial Integrity Act. We know for a fact that all these birth certificates, death certificates, they absolutely, positively denied people their right to a nationality. That may be where your cure comes from and your redress of grievances. Our blues ain't the same as everybody else. So, when people start talking about reparations and all this other shit, everything that the Indian's supposed to have is right there in the law. But if you're saying that you some other shit, you ain't going to get nothing because there ain't nothing there for them people. It ain't that hard, So, yeah. And that's the hierarchy. Third, Negroes. Lastly, descendants of the African race. And these generally possess no political authority whatever, not being able to vote, nor to hold any office. Well, we know that not to be true, right? We know that not to be true. And let me tell you what the trickery is, because when I went to the Attorney General's office to file a complaint, and which reminds me, let me tell you how there's this one so-called black lady, right, that works here in upstate New York, in Schenectady, in their human rights, right? She works in their human rights office. So I called there trying to get some information regarding one of the people that I was working with to assist them in a legal capacity or a lawful capacity, and gather some information. So when I called human rights to this, file, see what the protocol was to file a civil complaint. And when she found out who the complaint was, which was against their sheriff department, I had some really compelling information regarding their sheriff's department. So, I kind of pop up and I go and talk to these people and they tell me things that they don't know why I'm asking them these questions. And then I give it to them like, okay, well, I'm here, civil rights capacity. And I want to know why this is happening, why that's happening, and then you got to see how they straighten up. They go from not even making eye contact to when they do one of these and go, ma'am, I'm sorry, what is that you said? They whole shit change. Right, because you tell them that they're violating certain things that they're not used to hearing. They just say, oh, you discriminating on me, and da-da-da-da-da, and they just leave it really vague. That's why do you think 99% of civil rights cases are never founded? That's going to be one of the reasons why. So now that you know what an inhabitant is, maybe you want to start questioning these people and asking them who they from. They asking these people who they are for a reason, because they had to patrol. The Navy had to keep some of these motherfuckers out. The Portuguese was stealing these goddamn Africans, and they so mad at us. Why they don't want to fucking sue them motherfucking Portuguese? See, what they don't realize and what they don't want to admit, right? And this is the shit that pisses me off. What they don't want to admit is that 85% of them motherfuckers was already slaves in their own goddamn land. They was already slaves with their own people, and they was trading shit, and them people was like, you know what, I got these little pedophiles back here. And these motherfuckers, we don't want them in our village anyway. Why don't you give me some of that wine? Let me get some of that rum that they got and some of that sugar, right? Get us some corn and a couple of muskets and some fucking gunpowder, and you can take these motherfuckers. And these people would get booted, exiled over here, and they get hard times out this motherfucker. And you want to claim them, but you don't even know if they related to you. And I mean, my goodness, and then that may not be the worst motherfucking thing. There ain't nothing to be ashamed of. It ain't really got shit to do with you. But I just want to know, when the fuck do people factor in slavery as a prison form of punishment? Nobody stole a hog. You got some creep ass motherfuckers that do greaseball shit now. You didn't think 300, 400, 500 years ago they was doing greaseball shit that the people wasn't with? So you have most of these people. Now what I want to know is, were they fucking prisoners? Were they prisoners? How come those sundry officers, those 4 motherfucking people back in the the Negro Act of 1790 was passed, the Sundry More Act, excuse me. And these 4 motherfuckers, just 4, actually it was 2 and their fucking wives. Why was they so motherfucking special that they didn't want to be considered no goddamn Negroes when they looked just the fucking same as everybody else? Were they really officers for real? Sundry officers, think of it. And they just got caught up. Maybe they did some greaseball shit and one of their own people turned them in, right? Sometimes everybody ain't with the centurion gladiator, treat everybody bad shit. I know some people that went to jail. Not every CEO is fucking with you. Not every CEO don't like you, right? This had to be the same thing. Somebody had to cut somebody some slack some motherfucking way. But these sundry officers, And you want to know what I found funny? Speaking of sundry offices, I want to go to the state of Maryland Constitution. Just think of Baltimore and why things are so fucked up and raggedy over there, and why they so disadvantaged and disproportioned, right? It's a particular clause in there where they talk about sundry officers. Now, we brought this up before on Conversations with Talking Heads, and a lot of people didn't understand it. So now I'm figuring it's probably been about 6 months since one of us has ever brought it up again. But I want to know, did you see anything different since we read that Constitution and went through that with everybody of regards to the sundry officers and how some of the people do business with us, and how a lot of those people are not really Aborigines? They're really the sundry officers, the vassals. These are your vassals and catamites, right? Nobody don't want to talk about that though, but that's the goddamn truth. So in the Maryland Constitution, Article 7, sundry officers. So I don't know what this got to do. I wasn't able to tie this into a whole bunch of stuff as far as what they're doing with corrections and stuff like that. And I actually went to the Maryland.gov page to look at the Constitution. And there's some things in there that are not the same when I looked at it 6 months ago. It's like a lot of things are covert, and now all of a sudden everything's repealed, and it sends you all around. I just really haven't had time to go through those yet, all of these repeals and, when they were ratified and stuff like that. But I noticed the shit is different. So what's happening is, that's right. So what's happening is they are starting to conceal things in the places that are the most convenient for you to find them, right? So some people, when they're vague like this, if I had the time and I ain't got shit to do, because I don't watch Maury and stuff like that, and fortunately I've been blessed to not actually have to get up and go punch a clock. I still got to grind it out and work and shit, but it be on mostly my time, and I'm very fucking thankful for that. But this, it just got so vague. You got to go to it, when you have that downtime, stop calling these motherfucking offices and play with these fucking people. Start asking some questions and shit like that. Let me get to this little caveat. Yo, this shit is funny as hell with this guy from the Office of Federal Acknowledgement. And, I was acting very naive and, nonchalant and, just like, I'm just asking them questions. You want these people to be in their, their natural, in their natural way. You don't want them to be all uptight, and because then they don't really give you the information. They just start telling you the basic shit. You catch these motherfuckers comfortable in their element, and oh my goodness, they spill all the beans. It's pretty cool when they do that shit. Let's see. Yeah, these dudes is funny. And, the guy, he tried this shit, and I had to keep insisting to the dude that, why did my ancestors stay? So if you saying that the army and whoever forced these people by gunpoint to move, and the motherfucker took the shit personal the way he started talking about his own family. Well, my family, for instance, the Cherokees, white people always say they Cherokee first, right? You know that. That's the first one that they fucking grab a hold of. That shit is hilarious. Okay. Drive. But these people, it's not going to last that long. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't do it all the time. And this is where we begin to start sticking up for ourselves, and letting people know that we ain't with the shits, right? Because once you let them know that you're not with the shits, you see they start treating you different. I'm telling you, the actual At the end of it, these police officers or these constables on patrol, I hate saying police officers because we ain't vote none of these motherfuckers in. We ain't elect them either. We ain't swear 'em in. We ain't never seen their oath. We don't know these motherfuckers. They don't live in our communities. They don't play fucking police athletic league with our kids and none of that shit. These ain't the same goddamn people. These motherfuckers is Gestapo officers. And if you notice, ain't nobody getting clapped on Trump's watch. I find that shit a little strange too. Everybody got shot down on Barack Obama, shot down on that motherfucker's watch, right in front of niggas' eyes. Facebook Live, everything. People watching their motherfucking children get murdered, but ain't nobody dying on Donald Trump shit. He keeping everybody kids safe. I don't know. It's kind of hard to fucking understand how that shit's working, but you know. And let me see. I think we over here. You know what happens? I don't name stuff. So when I download it, I just have these files all scattered and stuff. I'm not really good with that kind of organization. Let me see if this is it.
Office of Federal Acknowledgement, may I help you?
Good afternoon. I'm hoping so. I'm calling to acquire a petition through the Freedom of Information Act.
That's how it started. I
You're
was
inquiring
asking
about
for
what
the couple of
I'd like
petitions,
to,
Seminole and
have a
whatever.
copy of a couple of petitions sent to me so I can review them.
Okay, which petitions do you have interest in?
I would like the MOA Choctaw, the Oklahoma Choctaw and the Oklahoma Chickasaw, as well as, and lastly, the Seminole of Florida petition.
Okay, now these petitions are quite extensive, and some of the groups
They don't
that
want
you
you
had
with them
mentioned
goddamn
Mhm.
have
petitions.
not gone through this process. I have a feeling that you might need to do some
Did you hear that? Let me
additional.
bring the shit back. Bring that shit back. The
Okay,
motherfuckers
which
ain't go through
petitions
that
do you have
process.
interest in?
I would like the MOA Choctaw, the Oklahoma Choctaw and the Oklahoma Chickasaw, as well as, and lastly, the Seminole of Florida petition.
Okay, now these petitions are quite extensive, and some of the groups that you had mentioned
Mm-hmm.
had not gone through this process. I have a feeling that you might need to do some additional search to narrow your search because, for example, the MOA petition is probably over 30,000 pages of
Mhm.
information.
Mm-hmm.
And at 15 cents a page, that's going to be quite extensive and expensive.
Well, I do have,
Have you visited
You see the
visited our
nigga cut me off.
website?
I have. I do live on a homestead, so I do have exemptions from any levies or taxes. So I
Well,
don't think I
there-
should
there
have
would
to
be
pay
no-
for it.
Yeah, there would be no waiving of the fee. You'd have to have extensive reasoning for requesting a waiving of the fee. And it's 15 cents an image, and we
Mhm.
do provide copies of these petitions, but you may want to narrow your search to particular documents that you're looking for, and one way is to take a look at the decision documents that do cite specific records or documents, and then that would narrow your search to maybe a 30-page document or a 20-page document or something of that nature, because
Right.
under FOIA, you are entitled to the first 100 pages at no cost. So I would recommend that you might want to start with our webpage, which is www.bia.gov,
Mm-hmm.
and we're under Who We Are, and then look for the link called Office of Federal Acknowledgement, and then there's a link on decided cases, and those are the ones that we would have records for. For example, you mentioned the Oklahoma Choctaw and the Oklahoma Chickasaw. They did not go through this process, so we do not have their records at all in this office.
And
Only the groups
have I
that-
contacted the right office? Is this the Office of Federal Acknowledgement?
Yes, it is, but our office began in 1978, and the Oklahoma Choctaw and the Oklahoma Chickasaw had their recognition back in the 1800s.
They had their recognition as soon as the emancipation. Huh? Y'all don't find that shit coincidental? Did you hear that motherfucker say that they didn't get recognized through the Office of Federal Acknowledgement? So, who are these people? Let's get some more.
Okay, and
So they did not go through this process.
And where would I be able to find that?
No, they did not have a petition process back then. They were established
They just
by
said,
treaty,
it is
and
Reconstruction,
you would find treaties
pen mightier than a
available
motherfucking
on
sword.
various websites. For
Websites.
example, the Oklahoma State University has a tremendous website for treaties, and you'll find that the Chickasaw and the Choctaw had over 30 different treaties over the period of 1789 through 1871. Treaties ended in 1871.
Interesting.
So I think you probably need to do a little bit more homework, and I would suggest
I need to do more
Oklahoma State
homework.
University, their website, I think, hold on, let me give you the website for their treaties. It's very
I think I would be able to
user-friendly.
find it
You just keep cutting
from
me off.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
Well, I'm just so, that's kind of weird because Oklahoma wasn't even established until like 1906.
Well, part of the United States history is that a lot of tribes were placed in the area which is now known as Oklahoma, but back then it was known as Indian Territory.
As Indians.
And these tribes were removed from the southeast in the 1830s and placed west of the Mississippi in what is now Oklahoma. So you have a bit of national history, state history, and local history that are all wrapped up in your project here.
Right. Oh, and what about the Choctaws and the Chickasaws that stayed? Because my family never left.
Well, you're going to have to
Awkward
research the
silence.
county histories in the states where your people remained, and perhaps there will be some explanations of how they stayed and continued to live in those areas.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And it's very possible that any of my other relatives, aside from the ones that stayed in their homesteads in their ancestral lands, the ones that did move to Oklahoma, could they be some of like the cousins or other family members, even some that may have been married in?
It's possible because those who left with the tribes continued to live in tribal relations.
This way he go for the cut, y'all. This way he trying to hit me with the elbow.
Elsewhere along the way, or when they got to Indian Territory, maybe they decided to go to other locations. But that's the fun part of doing family history is you start with yourself, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and your great-great-grandparents, and pretty soon you're in the generation of the 1830s.
Right.
Forced removal was a policy that was instituted during the Andrew Jackson administration, and doing some research on Indian removal will give you some dates and places to help you understand then how your ancestors played a great part in the history.
Right. I just, I was just totally confused because when I located my 4 times great grandparents, they never went through any removal at all. They stayed there, and I didn't understand how did they stay, and I found several extensions of that family, of the that part of the family that stayed in the area. But I was just curious if any of, some of maybe their cousins or anyone else may have went to Oklahoma. Like, did they have options? It seems like they may have had options.
Well, it was called forced removal, and it was a national, quite frankly, a national disgrace.
My family.
In that these tribes
Just got
were,
internal on me.
They were removed at gunpoint.
You see how frustrated this motherfucker sound?
Was one of the last to leave the area in 1838 and 39.
Right.
And they were dragged from their homes and the fields and
They were dragged.
rounded up, and then they left in 12 groups across, and then they traveled across the United States in what is known as the Trail of Tears, because so many people died during that terrible winter of 1838.
Wow.
So some remained in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama.
Yeah.
Because they left, they did not join their tribe. They did not continue to live in tribal relations. They started new lives in communities that were springing up all around them, and you'll find your ancestors on the federal census or state censuses or state records, and they may have maintained their Indian identity, but they were without a tribe.
May have. Like, good luck to you, honey. That's what he's trying to say, right?
But
Good luck
it's
to
still
you.
exciting because it is a part of your family history, and it's fascinating to find out.
Stay away from that paper genocide
how
conversation I was trying to lead him into.
And then they had children, and the next generation came forward, and here we are today.
And they were all right there, Boo. And I'm just trying to understand, how did they avoid being forced? That was always reinforced to me in school. So in every document that I've read, I've seen this Trail of Tears, but I didn't understand how my family got to stay. Like, how were they not forced? And this would have been in the hotbed of where most of these things were, battles and may have occurred. This is just absolutely fascinating.
There's one book that I would recommend. It's called Indian Removal by Grant Foreman. And he goes into the removals of the 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole. And it's called Indian Removal by Grant Foreman. And that'll give you some real good background information, because he goes into where these tribes were located in the southeast, and he'll go into detail, and then detail on how the federal government.
See how frustrated he kept getting, Marley? He had to keep taking deep breaths and shit.
Policy that was set by Congress and President Andrew Jackson in the 1830s, and how those tribes were removed from the southeast and relocated in what is now known as Oklahoma, but it was set up as Indian Territory.
Right. Now that was prior to it being Oklahoma?
Yes.
Right.
It's called Indian Territory, and the Chickasaws had their area, the Choctaws had their area, the Cherokees had their area, Seminoles and Creeks had their areas, and they continued to live in tribal relations until 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, and those tribes, according to federal statute, their tribal governments ceased to exist, but the tribal people continued to live, and it wasn't until the 1950s and 1960s that they were able to regain their tribal governments and again live in tribal relations.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And that would be.
We got booted, y'all, because we ain't want to join in their shit.
From back
Florida?
They were removed from Florida?
Yeah, in the 1830s.
Okay.
and early 1840s. I believe the Seminoles were the very last tribe to actually be removed, and a few of
So then they
the
should be
Seminoles
enumerated.
remained in
1830,
Florida.
1820, 1810,
And
1800,
a few
and
of the
1790.
Cherokees
So that's
remained in
50
North
fucking years that they
Carolina.
should exist on
They're
these
known
other
as the
records,
Eastern
right?
Band of Cherokee.
Right, right. Okay, okay, that's very interesting. Well, sir, I do thank you. I will try and
Well, visit our website and take a
He
look
got all
at some
sweet.
of the
Visit the website.
decisions, because we do have decisions that will provide you a great deal of information. And if you see a particular document,
right.
that would be a great way of narrowing your request. And it may be under 100 pages, in which
Right.
case you would be getting it without any cost.
Well, I'm gonna
What is your name, by the way?
contact my name is Phoenix. I'm going to contact see who I need to speak with. I'll contact my representative because as you know, me living on a homestead, I should be exempt from the charges regarding it shouldn't be an encumbrance regarding for the freedom of information request that I was asking in regards to the petition. So I'm going to go up the chain of command to find out how I exercise that right and how come there's a disconnect in that being applied. But I do appreciate speaking with you. This was wonderful, and the book was by Grant Foreman. Is that correct?
That is correct. Grant
Okay.
Foreman, and the title is Indian Removal.
Okay. Okay, and that will
All right,
explain
have a
to
great
me.
day.
That'll explain why a number of my family stayed.
More than likely, he does go into detail about the 5 civilized tribes in the southeast, and those that were removed and those that remained.
Okay. All right, fantastic.
Forced
Thank you so
removal.
much. You have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Yeah. So, so yeah. Okay, y'all. Talk about it. Talk about it. What y'all think about that shit? Isn't that bugged out? But, like I said, them motherfuckers ain't go through no Office of Federal Acknowledgement because that shit wasn't built till the 70s. So, again, it's a bunch of hogwash. And that's the proof in the pudding. That's all I wanted to prove. Trail of Tears is a motherfucking dub. Better show me them goddamn census records from the years before, you Seminoles. I ain't really had no problem with y'all, but there's so many of these other Western Native Americans that's just so angry they ain't never been their asses in the 13 colonies, and they go through the same shit that we went through on the other motherfucking side. Motherfuckers trying to steal their goddamn tacos, and they trying to take our goddamn cornbread, right? But, I don't know. That was it. Peace and love. I just had to get that shit off my chest. I love y'all. Y'all okay? Talk to y'all soon. Bye.